Well, you're watching World Talks on TVP World. My name is Sascha Fahrbach. Explosions were reported overnight in Russian-occupied Crimea as Ukrainian drones targeted a military site in Sevastopol, underscoring the ongoing intensity of the war in Ukraine. At the same time, Moscow is navigating the Iran conflict, shifting signals from the Trump administration, while the EU deliberates over a €90 billion aid package for Kiev. And now to get the latest analysis, we're joined by Sergei Erofeev, sociologist and lecturer at Rutgers University. Good to have you back on TVP World.
Thanks for inviting me.
I want to begin with the latest, really, in terms of this ongoing conflict in Iran. I mean, that relationship, especially with Moscow and Tehran, it has been a close one. There was criticism coming out of the Kremlin, support for the new Ayatollah. Where do we stand? How does Russia, how does Vladimir Putin interpret this current conflict?
Well, this is a clear case when the interests coincide of different parties, and it so happens that both parties are world offenders and of very different kind. But despite all the differences between the Ayatollah's regime and Putin's personal rule, there are certain things which are beneficial for them together. So like Putin and Trump can also play the same game supporting each other, it's even clearer in this case when Putin supports Iran, now maybe in return to what Iran did for him at the beginning of the war. So it's very clear, all done for the survival of both regimes, and this is the utmost goal in both cases. And they just unite in these situations. They clearly see how they can help each other.
Mm-hmm. And talking about helping each other, I mean, also what's complicated in all this is what's happening in Ukraine. I mean, the peace talks there, those trilaterals have essentially currently been paused. But how has this ongoing conflict also shaped that relationship, if we can call it that, between the Trump administration and also Vladimir Putin's Russia?
Well, for Putin, as the principal deviant #1 in the world, on the personal level, we have to remember that any disruption of world order plays into his hands. So sowing chaos is the principal instrument for Mr. Putin. And anything that disrupts Western democracies, undermines peace prospects for Ukraine, is extremely beneficial for him. It's very clear that in order to stay in power and to ensure that he's personally secure from stepping down and therefore losing not only power but possibly his life and facing huge disgrace in his cultural terms of very primitive value system. So it's clear for him that he needs to do anything. It's an extremely opportunistic behavior. So we have to remember that observing Putin, we should ourselves act as if we were observing a specific animal which pursues specific goals within his life niche, so to speak. So at this point of time, it's extremely beneficial for Putin to catch any moment to demonstrate again his high opportunism, to disrupt any Western unity in support of Ukraine, delay any peace prospects, because conducting this war is now the principal means of his personal survival. Mm-hmm. He can't afford just to go into peace phase without securing his future. Mm-hmm. And this will not be more secure if the war ends.
Sir, I want to ask you very briefly about something that the Wall Street Journal ran just very recently. Apparently that Russia is sharing satellite imagery with the Iranians, also including drone technology. You talked about opportunism there. Peskov from the Kremlin has denied that, saying that's fake news. I mean, how much truth is there, even if it is remotely true, and how does this change, if at all, the strategy here?
Well, it's no secret that during the time of war, different nations, including dictatorships, are trying to intensify their research and development in the military sphere. So definitely Russia has tried to do something. Earlier, Iran supplied the Kremlin with a new technology of those Shahed drones. We cannot rule out that somewhere in Sharashkas, in secret labs in Russia, something is going on. But one thing for sure, that Russia is heavily backlagging in every technological respect. So on the grander scale, in terms of producing modern state-of-the-art weapons, neither Russia nor Iran can significantly change the game. They do many things in order to persuade the world that something is going on in their favor. In that sense, it needs to be reminded again that the war for the Kremlin is, first of all, a cognitive war. So everybody in the world, especially the Western leaders, should believe that Putin is strong, that he's not losing ground in this war, that he has enough financial, economic, weapons, resources, and most importantly, people. And the West, personified in certain politicians, seems to believe and seems to give way to this type of cognitive war. The kinetic war on the battlefield is only secondary for Putin. He knows his weaknesses, and he does everything to pretend that he's not losing and maybe even winning step by step every day. So he has to demonstrate that to the world, to his inner circle, in order not to be in danger of being overthrown. And of course, everything to do with Iran is also just a part of this game.
Interesting points about, you said this is a cognitive war primarily for Putin. I want to ask you also about what you said about disruption. The plan that apparently the Kremlin has already put into motion, this sovereignty of the internet, this great Russian firewall that's supposed to be very much realized soon. Just tell us briefly, I mean, what kind of an impact that's going to have? And also, if we have that, internet blackouts potentially, I mean, I think Alexander Dugin has recently suggested this is going to be, they want to have Russia be sort of a part of, the line was a cycle of bears and butterflies for ordinary Russians. How much will that, let's say, rattle society? What can practically be done here? And how is that going to affect Russia going forward?
Well, over the last 4 years, we have obtained certain experience of how to try and understand what is going on in Russia in a totally different situation when you can't get access to many sets of data. Anyhow, modern methods allow, especially if you use ethnographic methods, interviews, personal stories, they allow to slightly open that window into that reality. Still, it's very, very hard, but what we can say for sure that something is brewing under the surface, and that the Russians' discontent is growing, which means that sometimes there might be certain jumps in this discontent, and we're observing one right now. There are even overlapping reasons for this discontent. One is what is going on with the popular international messengers, all these bans. People feel a very strong intrusion in the fabric of their everyday life, which they definitely dislike very much, like the mass mobilization. So it's kind of approximates that type of anxiety in the Russian society. But at the same time, we know what is going on with the farmers in Siberia and how many unchecked, allegedly infected cows and other animals are being slaughtered and burned right now. So this really breeds discontent, but the society is atomized, highly individualized, not organized, unlike what we call the government, or in Russia we call it vlast, the power structure, the authority, the government. They are highly organized. They have all the means of propaganda, persuading the West that everything is going well. And they will do everything to use even the pollsters' data as a propaganda tool to again and again confirm that they are supported by the people, by the broader population, which is not entirely true, of course.
Yeah, but this discontent, just I want to ask you briefly, I mean, as you said, is it building up anymore? I mean, there's obviously hardships from the front line in Ukraine. You have more drone strikes coming from Ukraine themselves deep into Russian territory. Is there at some point where this does reach a breaking point, or as you said, is this too much of a suppressed society that will make any difference?
Well, in history in general, and specifically in the Russian history, we observe a series of surprises. Who knew what would happen in February 1917? Who knew what would happen in August 1991? So certain things are brewing under the surface of society, which are difficult to measure, but indirectly it could be measured because we knew perfectly well the areas of discontent for the Soviet people in the late Soviet time. And one campaign in particular demonstrated that very well. That was Gorbachev's prohibition, fighting alcoholism in Russia. And what is going now in Russia with banning the popular messengers reminds, and many people have said that already, reminds that campaign how silly it is, how inefficient, and at the same time rigid and even cruel towards the population. We know that it will not bring results. And this guarantees that sooner or later the Russian society will show itself, will take to the streets, will be organized by certain political circles, but we at the moment don't see how it will happen and when it will happen. As always, it's a matter of time and cost. How many people, how much will have to suffer and even die.
I'll have to jump in there. Unfortunately, as I said, a matter of time. Unfortunately, we have run out. But look, thanks so much for all those insights today. Really appreciate it. Always a pleasure. Sergei Erofeev, thank you so much.
Thank you, Sascha.
And thank you for watching. That concludes World Talks, but stay right here on TVP World for more. Goodbye.